All right, the Final Fantasy XIV keynote just ended, and I kind of want to go through and give my thoughts and just kind of give a recap of what they showed off and I think what looks interesting and that sort of thing. So starting off, we've got the brand new place we're going to called Toral, the City of Gold, and we have the hub town, which looks like this. They went ahead and gave us some more concept art, and we can see that it looks more like this. And then lastly, here's the ruler of the nation. His name is Galul Jaja. This is a two-headed Mamulja. I mean, we're used to seeing this kind of guy, but this guy has two heads instead of one, so it's kind of crazy. So, I mean, overall, I think just based on this concept art alone, I'm liking the feel of what they're showing off, right? All these different colors, it's kind of popping. It gives me some Rods at Han kind of vibes, but more tropical, you know what I mean? Honestly, I think this looks great. They also gave us a couple screenshots outside of the concept art. So here you can see the harbor of the hub town. Here they're using the improved engine. So we have new lighting, new shadows, and more assets than we're used to in these zones. They gave us the same hub. I'm assuming this is a different part of the town. This one's at night. And then lastly, they gave us the same hub. This is the same hub. This is the actual harbor, but this time it's during the day from a different angle. And again, maybe you can see why I'm kind of comparing it to Rods here, just because of the flashy, reds and yellows, and they're all kind of popping. They also talked about the new zones. We have two new zones that they showed us. The first one being Urkopacha, which is this like mountainous plains looking thing. We've got giants, and then we've got incredibly tiny people. They showed off some screenshots of this new zone, showing off again new lighting, new textures, new assets, that sort of thing. They talked about the new trees, which we're going to get into in a little bit. But as you can see here, we've got stuff during different times of day, different angles, so you can kind of get an idea of the vibe of this place. Overall, I'm excited to quest here. I think this looks great. I can't wait to fly around and just kind of get that aerial view. I mean, this place, just look at the mountains in the background, right? Look at that scale. I think this looks incredible, and I'm very excited to kind of get my hands in there and get to play with this. They also gave us a second zone, some concept art and some screenshots. This one's called Yaktel, or Yaktel. I'm not entirely sure. But this one is a thick forest accessible from the hub town through dirigible. So, you got to fly in, kind of like when you flew to the Sea of Clouds in Heaven's Ward, so that sort of thing. Now, to me, it kind of seems like this zone was meant to take advantage of the new engine updates that they've done, because one thing that they really hit on was that foliage density, as we're going to see in some of these screenshots here. So these two images represent, this is the time of day change. So we have one image here at sunset, and again, they're showing off that density, and they're kind of giving us a feel for what it's like to be on the ground there. And then this other image, we get an aerial view of the same town during a different time of day with some fog going on. Now, it wouldn't be FF if we didn't have new allied tribes. So one of the ones that they showed us is the Pelu Pelu. Now, these little guys, and I do mean lil because they are incredibly small, these are the ones that live in Urkopacha. They ride alpacas, and apparently they're absolute business moguls because these guys, they trade everything. Tea, coffee, mezcal, I mean, you name it. All right, now moving through some of the content we can expect to see in 7.0, we know they're increasing the level cap from 90 to 100, not only for battle jobs, but as is expected for gatherers and crafters as well. On top of that, we can expect to see all the jobs get brand new skills, and they even mentioned that they're adding 2 new jobs. I mean, we knew that was going to happen, but we don't know what they are. Now, Yoshi P did tease the new jobs. He didn't say what they were, as in their names, but he did tell us that one of them is a melee DPS and the other is a ranged magical DPS. So 2 DPSs. Then he took off his jacket and he showed us his shirt. And I mean, he really showed us his shirt and he let us know, like, hey, maybe this has something to do with the new classes. So my speculation here, the turtle at the front has 2 swords and we're getting a melee DPS. So maybe we get a dual wielding class. Now, as for the ranged magical DPS, I have no clue how this relates to ranged magical DPS. So if you have any idea, leave it down in the comments and let me know, because I definitely don't. All right, moving on. Dungeons, raids, trials, all that fun stuff. We know we're getting more dungeons, as is expected. Here's the concept art that they showed during the live stream. That's pretty much all that we got in terms of dungeons. We know that the open world is going to have the stuff that we've come to expect. So fates, treasure hunts, and all that other fun stuff. It's all going to be there. It's also worth mentioning that the new dungeons for the story are going to have duty support. So if you're anything like me and you like running them solo the first time around, then that's great news because it's there for us. Moving on from dungeons, we move into trials, and here we have what I'm assuming is going to be one of the trials we'll be fighting, one of the trial bosses. Name is Valley Garmanda. Now, this looks like just some giant dragon peacock. I mean, this looks crazy. I love the colors that they went with here. It's flying in the sky. I can only imagine the arena is going to be something wild, and I'm very excited to hear the music for this fight, so definitely keep my eyes out for that. Moving on over to raids, we can expect to see a new 8-player raid series in 7.0, akin to Pandemonium. And then in 7.1, we can expect a new Alliance raid series, which they specifically mentioned they took the feedback from the current raid series, the Alliance raid series, and they're going to make this one even more Final Fantasy-ish because they know that people liked it. They also touched on the Ultimate, and we know there is a new one, but we have no idea. They didn't say anything about 7 point anything, so we have no clue when that's coming out. From there, they also touched on the new lifestyle content, which they said in 7.x. We don't know yet, but we can expect to see new content similar to Island Sanctuary. On top of that, obviously with the release of 7.0 being a new expansion, we'll be seeing new gear and recipes for our crafter buddies. So lots of new gear, lots of new quest gear, all that fun stuff. PvP will be getting an update. They said that Frontline and Rival Wings are getting updates, and that Frontline is getting new maps. And of course, Crystalline Conflict will be seeing new updates as well. On top of all that raid and trial and content goodness, we will be getting a new Blue Mage update, new plans for Deep Dungeons, which they said they are looking at ways to make new battle content that isn't Deep Dungeons, new Gold Saucer update in 7.0 or 7.x, and last but not least, the most important one, which is inconceivably further Hildebrand Adventures. So now that we've talked about the new updates regarding content, we're now going to swap on over to the system updates, which includes stuff like the graphics overhaul and that sort of thing. Starting off, we're looking at the first graphics update coming in 7.0. They said that they want to try to have as much content graphically updated as possible for 7.0, and then whatever's left over, they'll kind of go back and they'll start adding. So this includes stuff like dungeons and all sorts of materials. NPCs are getting makeovers, and then, of course, all of our gear sets are getting makeovers. I feel like they really nailed this material quality change and the character changes. I mean, it's still FF. It's still the game we know and love, but they just somehow managed to bring it up and just give it that new coat of paint. This looks fantastic. I'm very excited to play with this when it comes out. So materials and characters and NPCs weren't the only things to get updates. They're also updating, as we mentioned earlier in the video, foliage and density and that sort of thing. So as you can see in this picture, here's on the left the new update, and on the right the old update. So now we see less of that underlying grass texture and more of the actual flowers that pop up and that sort of thing. And of course, with all of these new enhancements to the engine and all of the changes that they've made, they were actually able to get some new improvements and quality of life things that we've been asking for a while. Specifically, the first one being 2 dyes per gear piece. They're also giving us eyeglasses, which we can wear alongside our headgear and don't take up any extra armory space. And for you housing addicts out there, they're giving us a furnishing limit increase planned for 7.x. Lastly, I think one of the coolest quality of life changes that they've added is this strategy board used for raids and trials, and you can share this with your team. You can strategize how you're going to approach the fight, who's going to stand where or not. So it's very nice to have this in-game that you can visualize without having to go to any sort of external parties to kind of get that information. Now that we've covered system updates, we can look at what's coming in 6.5 and 6.x as we wait for 7.0. And the main thing that they talked about here was there is an expansion to the free trial coming in 6.5. So new players can now play through Stormblood instead of Heavensward. Beyond that, in 6.5x, to me this was super out of left field, but Fall Guys collab. They're adding this to the Gold Saucer. You can see some of these screenshots here. This is wacky as hell. I probably won't get on to try this, but I'm happy that it's there for whoever is going to be playing it. And lastly, the absolute final thing that they talked about at the very end is that Final Fantasy XIV is coming to Xbox. Xbox players can expect to get beta access in 6.5x, and the game should be released in spring 2024 before the 7.0 release, so that when 7.0 releases, you guys are ready to go. Guys, if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, and let me know down below what you think looks the most exciting. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.